Life sometimes feels like a rushing river, sweeping us into the whirlpool of worries, sorrow, and negative emotions. Have you ever felt trapped in negative thoughts, unsure of how to escape? The Buddha taught that suffering does not come from the outside world, but from how we respond to everything around us. When we learn to let go, our minds become as light as drifting clouds, no longer bound by distractions and turmoil. Today, we will explore methods that help transform negative emotions, guiding you to rediscover peace within this very life. Letting go of negative mindsets is not merely a temporary choice, but a persistent cultivation of the mind, a journey of inner transformation that leads to true peace and tranquility. When we become caught in negative thoughts, our mind resembles a sky covered by dark clouds, causing everything in life to appear dull and clouded, losing its inherent beauty. In truth, those clouds are temporary and cannot alter the pure nature of the sky, just as the mental afflictions in our mind cannot change the inherent purity of each individual. Negative thoughts do not arise by themselves, nor do they disappear by themselves. They are formed from long-standing habits, nurtured over years of life, and even from many past lifetimes. A dismissive glance, a hurtful word, a failure in work, or betrayal by a loved one, each of these can become the seed that nourishes negative thoughts, which then repeat and become a vicious cycle, trapping us in persistent suffering. Without mindfulness and introspection, one can become engulfed in these emotions without realizing that they are the ones inflicting suffering upon themselves. The Buddha taught that to end suffering, one must first clearly see the causes of suffering, which means identifying the negative thoughts that are influencing our mind. Most people fail to recognize that they are immersed in afflictions because these thoughts come so naturally and are so familiar that they seem like a part of us. But the truth is, we are not our thoughts. They arise and pass away, just like ripples on the surface of a lake. If we do not cling to them, nor let them control us, they cannot harm us. One of the practices that helps free the mind from the cycle of negative thinking is loving-kindness meditation, also known as metta-bhavana, an important practice in Buddhism that transforms suffering into love and wisdom. When the mind is filled with anger, resentment, or anxiety, close your eyes, let go of all restless thoughts, and send out words of goodwill from deep within your heart. May I be at peace. May I be happy. May I be freed from suffering. At first, these words may feel forced or even irrational because, when we are immersed in negativity, it is hard to believe that we deserve happiness. But if practiced diligently, we will begin to notice the mind calming down, the walls of resistance crumbling, and a profound sense of relief spreading throughout our being. Once we can direct loving kindness toward ourselves, we can extend it to loved ones, friends, strangers, and even those who have caused us harm. This does not mean accepting their wrongdoings, but rather choosing not to let those wounds bind us in resentment. Holding on to resentment is like holding a hot coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else, but it is we who get burned. When we let go of resentment, we not only liberate ourselves but also free those around us from the cycle of suffering. However, letting go does not mean avoiding reality or denying our emotions. A common mistake many people make is trying to suppress negative emotions, thinking that doing so will make them stronger. In reality, this only causes those emotions to accumulate and explode later on. To truly let go, we need to face those thoughts and emotions with mindfulness, without judgment, without rejection, simply observing and recognizing them. Imagine your mind as a calm lake. When a breeze blows, the surface ripples, but it will soon return to stillness if we do not stir it further. Emotions are the same. If we do not cling to them, do not try to push them away or hold on to them, they will naturally arise and naturally subside. In daily life, to maintain peace of mind, we can practice mindfulness in every moment. When walking, know that we are walking. When eating, know that we are eating. When breathing, know that we are breathing. When we are fully present in each moment, negative thoughts will have no opportunity to take over our minds. Let us practice letting go of unnecessary things, for many people hold on to too many responsibilities, too many desires, pushing themselves into the vortex of anxiety. Simplifying life, knowing what is necessary and what is not, helps us let go. Practicing gratitude is also an effective method. When feeling discouraged, stop and think about the things you have: a home to protect you from the elements, a full meal, a healthy body, a friend who is always there. When we learn to appreciate what we have, negative mindsets gradually dissipate. Contemplating impermanence is also a way to let go of unnecessary sorrow. Understanding that everything in life changes, that no sorrow lasts forever, and that no hardship is permanent, helps us see that all our suffering will eventually pass, just like a dream, like a cloud drifting across the sky. And finally, plant seeds of goodness by helping others, even with just a smile, an encouraging word, or a small act of kindness. When we give kindness, we also fill our own hearts with joy. A heart full of love leaves no room for negative thoughts to exist. Letting go is not something that can be achieved in a day or a week, it is a lifelong journey. Every day, take time to listen to your heart, recognize what is happening within, and little by little, let go of what is unnecessary to preserve peace and serenity. Happiness is not a distant destination, it is the peace found in each moment of life. Complaining about things that cannot be changed only burdens the mind, like a person holding a heavy stone, lamenting how heavy it is, but unwilling to let it go. In life, there are things within our ability to change, but there are also things that, no matter how hard we try, we cannot alter. So why waste time and energy clinging to things that are beyond our control? The Buddha taught that suffering does not come from external circumstances, but from the attachments of the mind. When we desire something to be different, but reality does not align with our wishes, we feel dissatisfaction, resentment, and from this arises mental affliction. However, if we understand that all things are impermanent and arise due to conditions, we learn to accept and let go, no longer trapped by negative thoughts. Let us reflect on the story of the person holding a red-hot coal with the intention of throwing it at an enemy, but who ends up burning themselves. Complaining about what cannot be changed is the same. Every time we resent, feel anger, or complain about something that has already passed, we are burning our own minds with the flames of hatred, dissatisfaction, and disappointment. This fire does not change the external circumstances, it only burns us. When a person lives with a heart full of resentment, they always perceive life as unfair, their fate as cruel, and others as treating them poorly. But if we look deeper, we will see that it is our attachment to unrealistic desires that is the root cause of our suffering. The Buddha spoke of 2 arrows. The first arrow represents the suffering that arises from external circumstances, such as loss, illness, or unwanted events. This arrow is unavoidable because it is part of the laws of life. But the second arrow is one we shoot into ourselves, when we react negatively to what happens. For example, if it rains and we forget our umbrella, and simply accept that we are wet and seek shelter, only the first arrow strikes us. But if we become angry, complain about the timing of the rain, blame ourselves for forgetting the umbrella, or get upset with others, we are shooting the second arrow into ourselves. This second arrow causes even more suffering than the first because it arises from our own mind. When we master our reactions, we can stop at the first arrow and not create the second. Let us reflect on our lives. How many times have we complained about things that cannot be changed? How many times have we allowed negative thoughts to control our minds, causing us to lose our peace? If a person constantly blames fate for their bad luck, they will never see the new opportunities unfolding before them. If a person endlessly regrets the past, they will never enjoy the happiness of the present. The Buddha taught that mindfulness is the key to freeing ourselves from attachment and suffering. When we live in awareness, we realize that each moment is precious, and there is no need to waste time resenting what is past or worrying about what is yet to come. Imagine being stuck in traffic. You can be angry, constantly checking the time, honking the horn loudly, or you can breathe deeply, relax, and accept that traffic is part of the reality at that moment. If you worry about being late, will it make the car move faster? If you get angry, will it make the traffic flow smoother? No, it only increases stress and tires your mind. But if you stay calm and accept the situation, you can use the time to reflect on something positive, or simply listen to your favorite music to keep your mind at ease. When facing adversity, instead of complaining, we should ask ourselves, what can this teach me? Every challenge in life brings a lesson. A person who loses their job can choose to blame life, or they can see this as an opportunity to find a better job. A person who experiences failure in a relationship can hold resentment toward the other person, or they can learn to appreciate themselves and open their hearts to new opportunities. When we change our perspective, we see that what seems like misfortune can sometimes be an opportunity for growth. There is a story in the Buddhist scriptures about a king who was terrified of losing his throne. He often worried about people trying to steal his kingdom, to the point where he could never sleep peacefully. One day, he went to meet a meditation master and asked, "Master, how can I stop worrying about things I cannot control?" The master smiled, took a cup of water, and asked, "Your Majesty, do you see this cup?" The king nodded. The master continued, "This cup could break at any time. But if we appreciate it while it is still intact, we will enjoy its value. If one day it breaks, we will not be too sad, because we know that impermanence is the natural law." Upon hearing this, the king suddenly realized that his throne was like the cup. No matter how much he worried, he could not prevent the impermanence of life. From that point on, he became less fearful and began to live more peacefully. What is the lesson here? It is to appreciate the present and not worry too much about things beyond our control. If something can be changed, we should make the effort to change it. But if something cannot be changed, the best thing is to accept it with a calm mind. Strength does not come from trying to control everything, but from knowing how to master our reactions to the fluctuations of life. When we stop complaining and learn to accept, we will experience peace even in the midst of life's storms. Happiness does not come from having everything we want, but from knowing how to let go of what we cannot hold on to. Living honestly with oneself is a journey back to the true nature of the mind. It is the courage to face one's thoughts, emotions, and actions without avoidance or embellishment. In the teachings of Buddhism, honesty is not simply about speaking the truth, but also involves maintaining sincerity in the heart, without deceiving oneself, without chasing after illusions, and without allowing worldly gains to obscure the true nature of who we are. The Buddha taught that every person has the potential for enlightenment, as we all possess the Buddha nature, but this is hidden by ignorance, attachment, and delusion, preventing us from seeing the inherent purity within. When we live falsely, attempting to please others by presenting a version of ourselves that is not true, we create a barrier between ourselves and the truth. This is the root cause of the exhaustion, anxiety, and confusion we often feel in life. Living honestly with oneself does not mean giving in to emotions, acting impulsively, or neglecting control over our words and actions. Rather, it involves self-reflection, acknowledging the thoughts and emotions that arise without allowing them to mislead us down the wrong path. In the Noble Eightfold Path, the Buddha speaks of right speech, words that are truthful, beneficial, and harmonious. But right speech is not only about how we communicate with others, it also applies to how we speak to ourselves. When we frequently tell ourselves negative things, deny our own emotions, or force ourselves to become something we are not, we are deceiving ourselves. When the mind is not honest, we will constantly feel uneasy. We may try to hide our feelings, pretend to be happy while suffering inside, or try to please everyone around us, but deep down we know this is not what we truly want. We may deceive others, but we can never deceive ourselves. Therefore, liberation begins with being truthful with oneself. Reflect on your life for a moment. How many times have you done something just to avoid judgment from others? How many times have you suppressed your true feelings, afraid to speak your mind for fear of being hurt? If we continue to live in this way, we will lose ourselves. One effective method to live honestly with oneself is through the practice of mindfulness. When we live mindfully, we become aware of the emotions and thoughts that arise without being swept away by them. We can clearly recognize when we are happy, when we are sad, when we are angry, and we accept these emotions as natural parts of the mind. Mindfulness allows us to understand the roots of these thoughts and emotions, giving us the opportunity to adjust our actions accordingly. For example, if we feel angry, instead of repressing it or expressing it blindly, we can observe the anger, reflect on where it comes from, and gradually transform it with compassion and wisdom. Keeping a journal is also a helpful practice to better understand ourselves. Each day, take some time to write down your thoughts and emotions honestly, without judgment. Ask yourself, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? What truly matters to me? By writing it down, we can identify our psychological tendencies, understand what makes us happy and what causes us pain, and from there, we can adjust our lives in a direction that aligns more closely with our true self. In our interactions with others, living honestly does not mean saying everything that comes to our mind without considering the consequences. Honesty does not equate to being rude or tactless, it is a balance between truthfulness and compassion. Before speaking, ask yourself, is this the truth? Is it beneficial? Is it coming from a place of compassion? If a statement could hurt someone, but we can still express it gently and tactfully, then that is the kind of honesty that combines wisdom with compassion. Living honestly with oneself also means accepting who we are, not comparing ourselves to others, and not trying to become someone we are not. In the scriptures, the Buddha tells the story of a swan and a crow. The swan lived by a clear, calm lake, soaring high in the sky, while the crow wandered the city, scavenging leftover food. One day, the crow saw the swan and felt envious, thinking that the swan lived a happier life. The crow flew over and asked the swan, "Are you happy?" The swan replied, "I once thought I was the most beautiful bird, but when I saw the peacock, I felt inferior." The crow then went to ask the peacock, but the peacock lamented that its beautiful feathers had caused it to be locked in a cage, deprived of freedom. Finally, the crow realized that no matter what bird one is, if one cannot accept oneself, there will always be discontent. This story teaches us that if we keep comparing ourselves to others, we will never feel satisfied. Each person has their own unique value and path. No one is exactly like another. When we live according to our true nature, we will find peace. On the other hand, if we try to become someone else, we will always feel incomplete, no matter how many achievements we gain. Life is short, and every day that passes is one we cannot reclaim. If we do not dare to live truthfully with ourselves, if we do not confront what we truly desire, we will regret it at the end of our lives, realizing we wasted time trying to please others instead of living our own life. But if, starting now, we begin to learn how to live honestly, accept ourselves, and be truthful with our thoughts and emotions, we will gradually experience liberation and freedom right in this very life. Living honestly with oneself is not just an ethical principle, it is a path to happiness and enlightenment. When we no longer have to wear a mask or try to become someone else, we will feel light and at peace. When our minds are pure and truthful, with nothing hidden, that is when we draw closer to our true, untainted nature, and closer to enlightenment. The Buddha does not teach us to become someone else, he teaches us to return to ourselves, to recognize the true mind that is already present. If we can do this, then no matter where we are or what we do, we will experience peace within our hearts. Taking responsibility for one's life is one of the most important lessons that a practitioner of the Dharma must deeply contemplate. It is not simply about acknowledging what we have done, but also about being awake to the realization that every thought, word, and action contributes to the creation of our reality. The Buddha taught that everything we are experiencing is the result of karma, it is not by chance. When we blame circumstances, others, or even fate, we unintentionally relinquish control over our lives, casting ourselves as victims of external factors. However, when we take responsibility, we regain control and can transform suffering, moving towards a life of peace and inner freedom. In the teaching of karma and its results, the Buddha emphasized that each person reaps what they have sown in the past. If we are facing difficulties in the present, instead of blaming others, we should reflect on ourselves and examine what causes we have created to receive such consequences. Blaming only fuels anger, resentment, and confusion, whereas reflection and taking responsibility help us find the root causes, allowing us to adjust our behaviors and thoughts to avoid creating unwholesome karma in the future. For example, if we are having trouble in a relationship, it is easy to blame the other person. He or she doesn't understand me, doesn't care about me. But if we look deeper, we see that the relationship is the result of interactions from both sides. Do we truly understand and care for the other person? Do we communicate sincerely and compassionately? Do we behave in ways that reflect how we wish to be treated? When we take responsibility for our emotions and actions, we are no longer bound by resentment and can find a clearer path forward. Another important aspect of taking responsibility is accepting what we cannot change. Sometimes, adversity arises not because of anyone's fault, but simply because it is a part of life. Blaming does not help us escape the situation, it only causes more suffering. Instead of complaining, we can learn to adapt and find the hidden lessons in these experiences. For example, if we lose a job, we might blame the economy, our boss, or co-workers, but that does not change the reality. If we shift our perspective and view this as an opportunity to learn, to explore a new and better path, we will no longer feel trapped in sorrow. Practicing forgiveness is also an essential part of taking responsibility and stopping the blame. When we hold resentment towards someone, we unknowingly keep the pain within ourselves. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or agreeing that their actions were right, but rather choosing not to let hatred control our minds and emotions. By letting go of resentment, we free ourselves from the burdens of the past and can move forward with a lighter heart. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha tells the story of a monk who constantly complained about the difficulties he faced on his spiritual journey. He blamed his environment, the people around him, and his living conditions. One day, the Buddha said to him, "It is like someone who plants seeds on barren soil and hopes for a rich harvest. A person who does not take responsibility for themselves can never find peace." The Buddha's point was to remind us that if we continue to look outward for reasons for our suffering, we will never change ourselves. But if we look inward and recognize the elements we have created, we can begin the journey of inner transformation and find true peace. One more important thing that practitioners must remember is that taking responsibility does not mean self-blame or wallowing in regret. The past is gone, we cannot change what has already happened, but we can learn from it to live better in the present and future. If we have made mistakes, instead of continually blaming ourselves, we can reflect, I created this karma, but from now on, I will not follow the same path. With mindfulness, we can transform our past karma through virtuous actions in the present. The Buddha once taught that each person has the power to change their destiny by changing their thoughts, words, and actions. No one else can decide our life but ourselves. When we stop blaming and begin to take responsibility, we will experience true freedom. This is the freedom from the constraints of the past, from resentment and confusion, and the freedom to live a life of peace and greater meaning. Finally, remember that every challenge in life is an opportunity for us to grow and progress along the spiritual path. When faced with difficulties, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What can I learn from this?" When we change our perspective, the whole world will change with it. We are no longer victims of circumstances but become the masters of our own destiny. And when we take responsibility, we not only benefit ourselves but also spread peace and wisdom to those around us. In life, people are often swept away by unrealistic illusions, beautiful dreams that lack a solid foundation, like castles built in the air, which briefly appear in the mind before fading away, leaving nothing behind but a sense of regret. Daydreaming is a state of mind where one drifts aimlessly with thoughts that are disconnected from reality, leading to a loss of mindfulness and a departure from the true path one needs to follow. The Buddha taught that right thinking is one of the crucial elements on the path to enlightenment. It involves proper contemplation, intentionality, and actions that lead to genuine benefit. If we merely live in distant fantasies without a clear plan to make them real, then all of it is just an illusory dream, an escape from reality, causing us to mistakenly believe we are making progress while in fact, we remain stagnant. The difference between daydreaming and purposeful visualization lies in mindfulness, because a mindful person always knows clearly what they are thinking, where their mind is directed, and how they will achieve their goal without straying from the path of the Dharma. When practicing mindful visualization, one not only sees the final outcome but also recognizes the specific steps required to reach it, knowing exactly what to do in each moment to move closer to the goal. Someone who seeks a life of peace cannot simply sit idly and think about tranquility. They must actively let go of greed, anger, and ignorance, practice meditation, nurture compassion, and cultivate patience in every situation. A person wishing for success in their work cannot just wish for wealth or fame, but must diligently train their skills, enhance their wisdom, and work with a sense of responsibility. When we practice proper visualization, we not only see the path but also recognize the obstacles that lie ahead, preparing ourselves mentally to face and overcome them, instead of being disillusioned when reality doesn't unfold as we imagined. The teachings of the Buddha constantly remind us of impermanence, that everything is always changing, and thus, we cannot cling to a fixed outcome but must adapt flexibly to each circumstance. If we remain lost in illusions without confronting the truth, we will waste time and miss opportunities to transform our lives. But if we use visualization as a tool to illuminate the path ahead, and link it with practical action, we will gradually create a meaningful, steadfast, and wisdom-filled life. The Buddha did not merely dream of a world free from suffering, he dedicated his life to finding the path of liberation, practicing asceticism, deeply reflecting, and eventually attaining enlightenment. If he had only stopped at wishing, without determination and persistent practice, the truth would have remained hidden, and sentient beings would have continued to suffer in ignorance. Therefore, if we wish to change our lives, what is important is not to dream of a distant vision, but to clearly understand what we truly want, to visualize the path with mindfulness, and to begin practicing with persistence, diligence, and right effort. In each person's life, relationships play an incredibly vital role not only in nourishing the soul but also in maintaining mental stability and personal growth. A relationship is like a garden when it is cared for and nurtured. With love, attention, and genuine presence, it blooms beautifully, bringing vitality, peace, and happiness. On the other hand, if neglected, uncared for, or ignored, relationships slowly wither, like a dry garden lacking water and attention, gradually losing its beauty and freshness. To understand the importance of nurturing relationships, we must first recognize that a relationship is not simply communication between two or more individuals. It is a spiritual bond, a connection between hearts, minds, and consciousness. When we connect with someone sincerely, it is not merely sharing words, it is sharing emotions, thoughts, joys, sorrows, and empathy. This is presence, a fundamental principle in Buddhism. In the teachings of Buddhism, presence is not just about being physically present, it is about being present in mind, spirit, and emotions. A person may sit beside you, but if their mind is wandering and they are not truly attentive to you, that presence brings no value. The Buddha taught that, being present in every moment, is one of the essential principles in the practice. Presence helps us connect with ourselves and with others. In all relationships from family, friends, to social connections, the act of truly being there and sharing from heart to heart brings about harmony and deep peace that nothing can replace. We live in a modern world where everything moves quickly, and distractions have become a serious issue. Phones, social media, work, and countless other things easily make us lose focus on the important relationships in our lives. When presence is interrupted by external factors, it cannot bring good results to any relationship. Therefore, one of the first things we need to do in nurturing relationships is to create a peaceful, comfortable space where we can genuinely focus on the other person, listen to them, and share our own feelings. The beauty of a profound conversation does not lie in the quantity of words but in the quality and understanding between both parties. When we listen without interrupting, when we ask questions with genuine care, when we look into the other person's eyes and feel the emotions hidden in each word they speak, we will notice that the relationship becomes closer, stronger, and deeper. These small details can be crucial in maintaining and enriching the relationships in our lives. Moreover, in Buddhism, presence is not only the action of one individual but also a sharing of spirit with the community. The relationship between us and the surrounding community also needs to be nurtured and cared for. Therefore, when practicing the teachings of the Buddha, practitioners not only focus on purifying themselves but also on ensuring the well-being of all sentient beings. A united and joyful community will be the result of mutual presence and care. It is not just words of concern that matter in relationships, actions are equally important. The Buddha taught that actions are the result of thoughts in the mind. If our minds are filled with thoughts of love, compassion, and forgiveness, then our actions within relationships will reflect those qualities. Nurturing. A relationship is not limited to words or listening, it involves tangible actions, affectionate gestures, offering help when others are in need, and providing words of comfort and encouragement in times of hardship. Among all relationships, family is the most solid foundation. Family is where we receive unconditional love, where we learn how to love and care for others. Buddhism teaches that filial piety and gratitude toward one's parents are among the noblest of deeds, for they are the ones who first nurture and care for us. A happy family is not only built on filial piety but is also nurtured by presence, listening, and sharing among its members. When each person in a family takes time for each other, understands, and supports one another, the family becomes a tremendous source of spiritual strength, a place where we find peace and joy in life. Friendships also play a significant role in creating a joyful life. A true friend is someone who can walk with you through both happy and difficult times, helping and sharing the challenges of life. When we prioritize friendships, we feel the warmth and support that friends bring. This is much like tending a garden, where each friend is a flower, and every act of care and attention is a precious drop of water helping that relationship grow and blossom. Finally, no relationship can be complete without forgiveness and compassion. In any relationship, there will always be moments of conflict, misunderstanding, or disappointment. However, Buddhism teaches that forgiveness not only relieves tension but also frees us from the burdens of resentment and hatred. Forgiveness is the way to cleanse the soul, making the mind lighter and more peaceful, while also allowing the relationship to continue growing in peace and happiness. When we truly forgive and leave the past behind, the relationship becomes stronger, for it is built on understanding, love, and mutual respect. Taking care of relationships, prioritizing presence and love in every interaction, not only helps us maintain lasting connections but also brings us closer to enlightenment and inner peace. As the Buddha taught, love and care for all beings as you would yourself. Caring for relationships is a way to practice the Dharma, the path that leads to true peace and happiness. Each of us has faced moments of unrest, but remember, you are not your negative thoughts. They come and go, like winds passing through the sky. As long as you know how to let go, return to mindfulness and compassion, you will find peace in the present moment. I hope today's sharing gives you strength to continue on your path of practice and transformation. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and share it to spread positive values to others. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.